All right, welcome everyone to Beyond the Dashboard, our webinar from CloudKeeper on how cloud teams optimize their usage and spend. Thank you all for coming today. We've got a lot of exciting stuff in store. Excited to have everybody with us, and we can get started. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to meet the teams at CloudKeeper and the customers that work with CloudKeeper, and then we're going to hear from them about their personal stories from their organizations regarding how CloudKeeper Tuner impacted their ability to optimize their cloud footprint. And then we're going to get into some Q&A, but today is all about what's happening from the customer perspective. Today, we're joined by a few CloudKeeper customers, Pratish and Sunny. Pratish and Sunny, do you want to come on and introduce yourselves?
Hey guys, I'm Pratish Arora. I work with NetRoadshow. Been working with NetRoadshow almost for 10 plus years now. I lead the DevOps team here at NetRoadshow.
No, you're good. That's great. We'd love to hear about what you do. And in one sentence, what's your biggest cloud infrastructure challenge?
Right. So what we do is we host roadshows basically, and we've got like a highly secured set of applications which the customers around the globe use them. So what our biggest challenges when we talk about is it's between the right cost we spend on AWS, security, and then the architectural complexity with what we have. We've got applications which are like as old as 30 plus years. I mean, yeah, not I mean, yeah, but then yeah, they have been running like that model has been running for like 30 odd years, and then yeah, and then keeping up to the latest technology stack, right? AI coming in, so yeah, a mixture of all that is basically our biggest technical challenge.
Excellent. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you for volunteering your time today. Sunny, how about you? What's your role? What does your organization do? And what's your biggest cloud infrastructure challenge?
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Chhatija. So I've been with Bidgely for last 8 years, and currently I'm a DevOps manager here. I'm managing a team of DevOps engineer who take care of the infra part end to end across the organization. Our major, challenge today is the scalability versus cost, right? Whenever we are scaling as a company, we are growing, but we at any given point of time we have that worry that we do not cross a certain budget which we have decided, right? And that's where we have to balance it both. We cannot just scale up our infrastructure infinitely and not think about cost, because a growth is measured by cost here, right? So of course the scalability is the bigger option for a bigger challenge today. Along with that, as Pratish mentioned, like in this world, like everyone is adopting AI, so we have to be fast enough to adopt to new technologies, see how we can change our infrastructure to serve more, and at the same time basically be available all the time. So that's the challenge today.
Excellent. Great diversity of challenges. I think very representative of the industry at large. We've got performance, we've got scalability, we've got efficiency, we've got reliability, we've got dynamic infrastructure, and we've got modernization all in the mix. So can appreciate the challenges of managing large teams in those dynamic environments and the ability and need to optimize those ongoing. So when we think about, what's the context of this webinar? What does CloudKeeper do? I'll guide you all through a quick plug. I promise this will be short, but this is associated with our AWS Cloud Fitness Challenge, which is really a way that customers can interact with us on a 30-day basis, no commitments, no cost, and understand what they can be doing to optimize their footprints better. On average, we're saving customers 20%. If you're out there and you're interested, highly encourage you all to take the Cloud Fitness Challenge. We'll have a QR code at the end of the webinar that you can check out if you're interested in signing up. This is a 3-part series. In the first part, we address the 5 pro tips for a healthier AWS infrastructure. Those are all very broadly applicable to most of the customers that we interact with. On June 26th, we showed everybody how to cut costs by 15% in just 15 minutes. Again, this is what we live and breathe and all we do. If you're curious, we'll send links to those webinars as well. And today it's all about the customer impact story. We want to hear from our customers, what was the experience really like going through this optimization path? when we talk about CloudKeeper Tuner, that's going to be the focus of today's webinar and the focus of a lot of the things we're talking about. Just to give you some sense of what that is, it is one of the tools on our platform that we offer that automates a lot of the remediation associated with optimization, and it provides very in-depth recommendations across a broad landscape within your AWS footprint. So for us, that covers over 100 actions, over 50 AWS services. So regardless of what you're using, this is a great way to just lower the overhead and associated with optimization and make sure that optimization gets implemented. So let's switch now to the impact story and hear more from our customers. We can start with Pratish, and let's talk about the before picture. So obviously, you've been working with CloudKeeper for some finite period of time, and you had a certain life before you were working with us, and you have now, I would like to think, a new and improved and better life now that you are working with CloudKeeper, and specifically CloudKeeper Tuner. And I'm curious to see between the two of you how different your approaches were, but how would you describe the before picture? How were you handling cloud cost optimization before we were a part of the mix here?
So before we moved on to CloudKeeper, what we had was we used another vendor, which was based out in US. But then again, they had very limited reporting, something which was very high level, just showed us what the total cost was, and but nothing that would actually help me out to go and fix an issue. Like what CloudKeeper does is it actually lets you take actions, and the more to it is like you just can't take an action without understanding what the impact of this action would be, right? So what with CloudKeeper, how it makes a big changes, a lot of meaningful reports now, right? So there are a lot of breakdowns and like it's got reports for everyone. So the biggest challenge for me before CloudKeeper was aligning my dev team with the management, right? They both have to be on the same page and both have to have their own set of reports. So the CTO of the company doesn't care. Like he doesn't want to look at each and every service. What he cares is what the total AWS spend is, and just needs a high level of report, right? But that doesn't help the developers to actually go and see where we have opportunities to reduce the cost, right? So that's one thing where CloudKeeper definitely makes a difference. The other thing is the alerting what CloudKeeper, right? We didn't have any alerts before this, so we wouldn't be alerted if there's a sudden spike in any of our services, some misconfiguration somewhere. CloudKeeper helps us doing that. So the before picture was a lot of manual work if you want to drill down to something to find out why the bill is very high. But now it's like more of an automated, easy to navigate system, and timely alerts is now more about it.
Awesome. Sounds like a huge impact from adopting CloudKeeper. I'm very happy to hear that. How about you, Sunny? How would you describe the before picture?
Yeah, so I think before CloudKeeper, we were purely relying on AWS Cost Explorer, right? And whenever we needed to debug around the cost spike, or we wanted to see how much we are spending on a particular customer or how much we are spending on a particular service, it was purely a manual thing. Though we had anomaly reports, but in Cost Explorer, we had to set up everything manually and one by one. You cannot just say that across all the services, if there's a deviation of 10%, let me know, and then I'll go and look into that. That was not an option. You had to individually go and set up for each service, and it involved too much of manual effort. Somebody had to be expert to understand how each cost shows up. How do I know that how much I'm spending? What is the category in which I'm spending? So that needed some expertise and knowledge for a person to have. Post CloudKeeper, onboarding to CloudKeeper, for me, it has become a one-stop solution. Any deviation happens, I know that I'm about to receive an email in my inbox from CloudKeeper team saying that, okay, here's a spike which has happened. We are noticing it based on the average of a last X number of days. And is it expected or not? If it is expected, they're happy to close it up. But if it is not, then that's a good point for us to check whether it's really an anomaly or was it something expected we forgot to inform the CloudKeeper. So it's more of having a extended support team who's purely looking into how much you're spending today, right? And if there is any variation, we are catching that much earlier than we used to do while using the Cost Explorer.
Got it. That makes total sense. So it sounds like the ability to detect cost anomalies has drastically increased in quality and efficiency for you all, and you're spending a lot less time on your overall setup of alerting and things like that. And Sunny, we'll stick with you for this one. I'm curious, one of the things we hear from our customers most often is that there's a big difference in the amount of time they actually spend optimizing their environments after they adopt CloudKeeper Tuner. What would you say when you think about the overhead and the time that your team was spending or you were spending on optimization across categories, whether it's understanding your bill or actually implementing optimization changes? What was taking up most of your team's time, and what was the impact of that? Did that mean it didn't happen often? Did that mean you just spent a lot of man hours on it? What was that like?
Yeah, I think cost as an effort, when we talk about it, saving some cost, it has to be taken up at an organizational level. Plus, it has to be taken across various teams in the organization. For us, while before when we were not in CloudKeeper, a person has to sit. He has to see the recommendations across various tools in AWS. He has to see, are we over provisioned, rightly provisioned in the cost, in the compute optimization. Plus, at the same time, he also has to see, are we secure enough. But post CloudKeeper, I think since we have Tuner now, Tuner is just acting as an additional feature on AWS. What I've done is I use Tuner as a Chrome extension. And so whenever I browse through my AWS console, Tuner just pops up and shows me the recommendations right away. So it makes my life much easier because I can see the recommendations just in front of my eye rather than scrolling and browsing much different services. So in that way, anybody who is browsing it, irrespective of which team they belong, what's their designation is, they are aware that, okay, here's an opportunity, I can save some money for the organization, right? I understand that not everybody would be able to take an action, but that creates a starting point for us to see that, okay, if the cost impact is this huge, why not just go ahead and take an action right away, rather than waiting for sprints or a quarter to plan it out thoroughly and then implement it. We are just saving costs from the next day onwards.
That's great. I love the idea of putting the power of optimization in everyone's hands and building that in as a cultural standard at Bidgely. That's one of the big goals we have for our customers is to make it as easy as possible, empower customers as much as we can. And it sounds like your team has done a great job of that. Rather than spending hours and hours on analysis and impact and security, we can make this part of the process of interacting with your infrastructure in and of itself. So that's great. And Pratish, how about you? When you think about time spent across you and your teams, what did that look like in the before picture for you?
So yeah, the before picture was more like once you get a big AWS bill spike, right? You were at 100K last month, now you see 120K suddenly. That's when the project starts, right? With CloudKeeper, it's just that as soon as you have a small spike, also, right? I mean, that's the way any organization moving into your cost optimization should look at it, right? It shouldn't be like just become a one-time project when you see a surprise, right? So that's where we didn't have the time to go and look into all this on daily basis because everything was manual. Even like Sunny mentioned that, yeah, go to your cost explorer. You need to go around 10 different tools, multiple accounts all around, right? So it's not that all our AWS infrastructure is set up in one account, right? You'll have to go across AWS accounts, figure out what's happening, right? So with CloudKeeper, you've got the tuner, you've got everything at one place, and now it's as easy. Yeah. So before, it's proactive rather than being like, yeah, like you waiting for it. Things happen. You get an email from your CEO. Why is this 120K now? And rather than reacting, then you just do it way before of time. That's the difference.
That's great. And how often are you in CloudKeeper? How have you incorporated it into the fabric of your working day?
Multiple, like we get the extension, like what Sunny just mentioned about is DevOps engineer has to be on AWS console maybe half the time he does his work, or maybe the entire day also, right? I mean, you just log out of it when actually the session times out. Otherwise, you're there in the entire day, and like having an extension in there means like you're using it all day. So whenever you see a screen where you're looking at a database or a server, it shows you right away the extension that this is where the saving is, right? I've got engineers in my team who've got more than 30 years of experience, and looking at this extension the first time, the feedback was this is the best extension for a cloud cost tool we have ever seen. So yeah, that's the kind of feedback I have for CloudKeeper.
Excellent. Okay, now I want to talk about what it takes to actually get set up with CloudKeeper. And I'm curious, Sunny, we can go back to you. How long did it actually take you to get CloudKeeper Tuner up and running? And were there any surprises with respect to velocity or complexity in that setup process?
Yeah, I think it was fairly simple for me. It was less than a couple of hours, to be honest, because I had like around 10 accounts to onboard on CloudKeeper, and it took less than 2 hours to onboard all of them together into the tool and use Tuner. So, yes, there were certain challenges for myself because I was not aware of the entire process of decoupling it from my previous organization account and then onboarding onto CloudKeeper. That had to be done as it was my first time experience, but otherwise it was a pretty smooth process entirely.
Excellent. How about you, Pratish?
Yeah, on the onboarding process, I would say it was one of the simplest onboarding we've done. Very straightforward. Just run some CloudFormation scripts, which were being shared with us, and we just ran them, and everything was up and running. We also had more than like 20 odd accounts where we had to set up all this, but then yeah, a few hours and you can get everything running. Though we had a longer process of couple of days, wherein like the security team wanted to ensure that we've not overprivileging CloudKeeper to just overtake our AWS accounts and all that, right? So we had all the right audits and all that proper support from CloudKeeper on getting all those questions answered. So yeah, it was pretty smooth.
Excellent. So I think it's safe to say for both of you, this was low effort, high impact, even with, anywhere from 10 to 20 some AWS accounts, scrutiny by security teams, everything else. Within a couple of hours, you were all through the setup process and able to see some impact from CloudKeeper Tuner. Very happy to hear that. Now the big question that everybody wants to hear, sounds like it's easy to onboard, sounds like life before CloudKeeper Tuner was much more complex, it took a lot more time, was much more reactive than proactive. But let's go around the panel. What kind of savings percentages were you seeing? And I don't mean this question to be intrusive. You can share whatever you're comfortable with. That can be ranges, that can be exact numbers, really up to you. But I think the big thing that everybody wants to hear is, what are the results? Pratish, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
Okay, so like I mentioned, we've been evolving, we've been growing, so we don't have a fixed number or a concrete number, but then I can definitely, with some of the new investments, what we've done on AWS and still being within our AWS bill spent, I can definitely ensure that we've saved thousands of dollars on by right sizing or by removing unused resources, all these recommendations which came on from CloudKeeper. And then it's not only about saving money, it's about how well adapted or how some of the recommendations which CloudKeeper gave us made us improve our system performance also. So one recommendation which CloudKeeper would definitely, once you get your cloud account analyzed, right, you might be running instances which are like were launched like 10 years ago, right? You never thought of moving them into new instances. I mean, Amazon has got so many new instance types, the new powerful processors, which they kind of give you for cheaper price, right? So one example was we have a application where we show the end users PDFs, and these PDFs aren't like just simple PDFs. They're like highly secured PDFs. So if Ryan is viewing the PDF, Ryan's IP address, Ryan's email address, everything will get watermarked on that PDF, right? So with moving from the server type recommendation, what CloudKeeper gave us, we actually saved money. And top of that, this PDF, which was rendered in like 10 seconds, now takes roughly about 3 to 4 seconds. So we almost like kind of doubled our performance, which was kind of a very good pitch for a sales team on the product I'm talking about.
That's excellent. And when you think about how you've continued to evolve, it sounds like implementing new instance types is part of that. Anything else you can tell us about, if you look back on your journey with CloudKeeper, how are you all envisioning your change and your growth over time, or any other anecdotes around how your architecture is evolving?
Yeah, I mean, biggest thing with CloudKeeper is, right, it brings a change in your thought process. See, a dollar is a dollar for me, whether it's spent from my pocket or from my company's pocket or from my client's pocket, right? So CloudKeeper kind of takes that responsibility and comes back and understands that if my client is spending this dollar, whether it's going out of from his pocket, I need to monitor it carefully. I need to have them go in that direction. So it makes you have a sense of feeling that, yeah, your spend on AWS, though it's from your company's pocket, it is a spend, and please monitor it carefully. So that's the kind of, it just changes your thought process using this entire tool that the AWS spend is something which just keeps growing. You need to monitor it very carefully.
Excellent. And how about you, Sunny? Same question. What kind of results are you seeing? Have those results changed over time? Again, don't feel the need to overshare, but just curious how you'd react to that.
Yeah, I think for us, for last 6 months, we have been spending more than the previous month because of the organic growth, right? But then we cannot just have the same pattern and then keep spending again and again. So that's where I think CloudKeeper pitched in. We did a round of architected review for us in terms of cost, in terms of understanding how our architecture is designed, how are we doing our operations today, and what we can do different to save the cost. So that entire effort of having calls with CloudKeeper team, I think I'm having calls with them almost every week, and where the team comes up with the action items, my teams take care of it, action items, and we come back saying that okay, it's implemented, and then we see the results. So across the last period, whatever time we have been on board in CloudKeeper, I think there was a number of roughly 10 to 15% of the savings we would be attaining. We are slowly moving towards the end goal of 15%. We are yet to reach to the 15%, but we are in a good position. I can definitely say that, month on month, our spending is getting reduced. We are saving some more amount than the previous month because there are new findings every month. As I said, like on every meeting, we finding something new that we have not, maybe it's not implemented in the right way, or there's a better way to do that because there's a team of experts sitting over there who are just reviewing our architecture and see what is the opportunity. So that is helping us a lot. At this moment, I would definitely say we are close to 10% of savings.
Excellent. And I think that's a common pattern in a lot of the customers we have where, optimization is not a big bang. It is a journey. I like to compare it to having a healthy lifestyle, right? With diet and exercise, it really only works if you do it consistently. The same goes for cloud optimization. We've got to understand the impact of any changes that we propose. We've got to understand where costs are coming from and how they can actually be optimized. And we've got to keep up with your environment as it changes over time. So really happy to hear you've been making good use of those ongoing meetings with our team on top of the built-in ease of using CloudKeeper Tuner. I think that's huge. Now, want to talk a little bit about the features that you all are using. We've touched on this a bit, but CloudKeeper Tuner has over 100 automated actions across over 50 AWS services. What features are your teams loving the most? Let's see if there's consensus or different, preferences across your organizations. And Sunny, we can start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think my team, uses the recommendations part a lot, wherein we get the recommendations of what we have provisioned right versus what can we do to reduce the cost. That is one part of it. But now I think, in the recent times, I think you have also implemented a feature which is give me an option to personalize my recommendations, wherein, I can snooze off some of the recommendations. I can just select them and put on snooze for a certain period of time if I think that is not useful for me. So that was a feature I was missing a lot because, of course, being in an environment, you might feel that sometimes the recommendations are very generic, but this feature brings a lot of personalization for myself, right? Along with this, so there's a feature of scheduling things, like you can schedule the stop and start of instances for your non-prod account, etc., etc. So that helps a lot when you can take an action directly from your console on this CloudKeeper. So that these two are pretty much used in my team. One good thing I noticed was that while we were onboarded on CloudKeeper and in Tuner, when you go in, so generally you will start seeing recommendations which are general in nature, but then you have an option to dedicate basically you can declare your account, whether that account belongs to a production environment, the non-production environment, and then based on your tagging, basically the recommendations change. You do not recommend of course, for giving an example, you don't want DB to not have multi-AZ setup in a production environment, right? But in a general setup, just to save cost, anybody would recommend me that. So that kind of features helps us a lot, and we have been using this so far.
That's excellent. I'm very happy to hear that the flexibility of the platform and adaptability of the platform is being put to good use. I want to double click on one thing that you mentioned there with the resource spin down. That can mean a lot of things in a lot of different contexts, but what's your experience been with the ease of use of resource scheduling and spin down?
I think, when it comes to saving costs, every company, the first recommendation would come in like shut down your non-production instances when they're not in use, right? Yes, we try to do a lot of automations, but with every day catching up things and maintaining the infrastructure, it's not that easy to automate, and you don't have additional resources sitting and who are doing your automations, right? So when you are having an option of selecting the resources and just putting them under a cron job, which will just schedule it, shut it down, and bring it back as and when you need, that features reduces the need for you to automate things. Previous to CloudKeeper, we used to have a automation script which we had scheduled in our CI/CD thing. It used to do the job, yes, but then on every launch of new infrastructure, we have to ensure that we are adding it on another page as well, right? That part of operational overhead is gone now. So we don't rely on adding new things into our older script. Rather, you have everything present on the console. You can go there, select it, and just shut it down or start it up. So yeah, that helps.
That's excellent. I mean, this is one of the common things that we see occur in customer environments. You can have the best of intentions with setting up things like resource spin up, spin down, and then life sets in, right? Entropy does what it does, and all of a sudden those scripts or those schedules are no longer applicable. You've got other things to do. They don't get turned back on. And so we were very purposeful in introducing these features to be long lasting, eliminate that overhead. So now it sounds like you're saving time, not just with the initial setup, but on an ongoing basis, not having to QA those things, not having to make sure that they're reapplied. So super happy to hear that. And Pratish, how about you? When you think about the features of CloudKeeper Tuner, what are your teams using the most? What do you love the most?
The reports are really useful. That's one thing, and I think Sunny covered a lot of it already, which is basically the recommendations which come in. You can directly take actions from right away from the tuner, right? You don't have to go on to AWS console, track where this is coming from. So yeah, these are the key features which we love about tuner.
Awesome. Yeah, and Sunny did a good job of summing us up there. Now, for us, we do consider ourselves an engineering-led organization, and I think that's been demonstrated here with the flexibility of the platform, ease of use of the platform, and in fact, all of the things that we have implemented and all the things that we will implement have actually come from customer feedback. That is the sole source of our customer backlog. And I'm curious, what features would you all love to see CloudKeeper add? And we can start with Pratish. What would be on your wish list?
One thing would be like what we do today is if there's a recommendation, I just don't want to take an action on it right away, right? There would be ticket in Jira or one of my system where I want to go track all these changes what we are making, right? Because if you want to go back in time, check where this change came in from. So if we can automate the flow, integrating with other tools like Jira or something of that sort would really help us reducing the manual time we spend on doing that today.
Excellent. Great suggestion. I'm sure our engineering team is listening and they will add that to their to-do lists over time. Sunny, how about you? How would you change things? What would you like to see?
Yeah, I think one of the features, as I mentioned in my previous comment, the snooze feature, that was one of the recommendations I was putting up to CloudKeeper team, so that because I was really looking forward to something having such feature in my tool, right? So other than that, yes, there are certain things. For example, you are recommending me to save some cost. I would say not everybody is, they know what to do in certain cases. So along with the recommendations of saving costs there, let's add a little steps to do that so that it's more easier for people to adopt, go ahead and do step 1, step 2, step 3, and that will save me X amount of the cost. So if you can just add how to do that along with what to do, that would be great.
Got it. That makes total sense. Any way we can make these things easier for our customers, we'd love to do that. And super happy to hear about the immediate action on your feature request for those snooze events. That is what we like to see in ourselves. It's what we like to provide to our customers. We want to keep these recommendations coming for you, for any future customers, for any of our current customers. Love to see that interaction between our teams. And so final question as we start to wind down here. If you had to convince a peer at another company to consider CloudKeeper Tuner, what would be your strongest argument? And I know that navigating these decisions is different for every organization, but just curious, what would your pitch be? Pratish, we can start with you.
I mean, just in one line, I would say just get on board and you'll see savings from the very first, not month, I would say, very first few days. Is how quick it is, right? I mean, the 30 days trial period or whatever you mentioned about that, right? So that's when you'll just start seeing the saving. That's how easy it was me to convince I had to convince a few people here at NetRoadshow before we could move on to CloudKeeper, right? Because we were with the vendor, we were with them for like almost 20 years, not 20 years with cloud. They manage our hardware, they managed our colo initially, so it was a tough decision for us to make to move. But then, yeah, you have to with time move on to the right people for the right solution, right? So CloudKeeper for me was the right solution for your AWS or maybe the other clouds also, though we are all on AWS. But then, yeah, that's how easy it was me or to convince anyone that just get on board, you will see these savings. That's how we did it basically.
And that's a core philosophy of ours. When customers come on to the CloudKeeper platform, they're not locked in, right? So try us out, see what we can do, see if we stand up to what we're offering during the sales cycle. And if you don't like it, you can go back to exploring what else is out there in the ecosystem. But we've got a lot of confidence in our platform, ton of confidence in our services and our ability to react to customer requests. So I think that the main theme is just go try it out. What can it hurt? How about you, Sunny? What would your pitch be?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I look CloudKeeper as a one-stop solution for myself, like not just for cost savings, but there are other areas where I have taken help from CloudKeeper, and it has helped me a lot to take decisions at the right time, to take the right decisions, of course, right? So beyond cost savings, there is a term cost management. Like we also want to manage our future costs. We don't want to overspend it. So rather than savings, I also want to see that I'm provisioning the right infra with the right architecture, right? So those kind of help, expert in, I would say, reviews help me a lot to take the decision. So once you are onboarded to CloudKeeper, I would say you will be much relaxed that you have an extended team who will just take care of ensuring you're moving the right path. So that's how I look at the CloudKeeper.
Awesome, and thank you for those. We've got a few additional questions that have come in that we can turn to. So whenever you think about the point where you were talking to internal leadership, what resonated the most with your executives? Obviously, Sunny, we can stick with you. You didn't have the confidence of already being on the platform. So I'm curious, how did you approach leadership? What was their reaction? How did you convince others that this was the right way to go?
Yeah. So I think, we had explored more vendors before onboarding to CloudKeeper. I think we did go through a lot of features everybody's offering. So, the claims of saving costs were common across the industry. But, when we see on a day-to-day how easy it is to adapt, how easy it is for us to onboard there, what we can do better there, like what are the features which are more useful to us. Features, what you said, recommendations, right? Yes, I understand that everybody uses the cost and usage reports and give you a certain amount of savings, but then it's not that easy for anybody to adapt, right? So we had a demo for our leadership. There was a demo provided by CloudKeeper to our leadership, and they were happy to onboard. So just after first demo, there was certain understanding of what we can do. Even before we were onboarded, like you mentioned, there was a trial period. So we went through that. We understood that what level of savings we can, adapt and get it. And that's where I think that convinced them a lot. Seeing the number was more than enough for them.
Excellent. Pratish, how about you? How did the internal conversations go? How did your leadership react? And what eventually got everybody on board to try out CloudKeeper?
Right, so a couple of things there. One thing was, yeah, the initial the report what we got back from you guys, right? That this is the amount you can save, right? That was the most convincing part for us. Okay, yeah, this is where you could save like 15-20% is what you showed us. Though that's where it was very easy for me to convince, and then met the entire security process and all that. So no hard challenges and all that, right? So that's the biggest thing. I mean, the you guys were supportive enough to fulfill all what we needed and then save the money for us, right? And own the responsibility, give us the right support, whether it's technical, whether it's related to security, audits on our accounts. So you get all those add-ons, right? So who wouldn't like those add-ons? So it was very easy for me to convince the customers. I'm not sure whether you guys still have the discount programs and all that, but then the reseller discount, whatever that was also very tempting. So yes.
Yeah, excellent. Glad to see that we were able to demonstrate our capabilities up front and make a meaningful impact in how you all were evaluating us against the competition. Glad to see that we're standing up to all of the things that you all were led to believe during the initial conversations and evaluation of CloudKeeper. And so, when you think about those initial experiences, sounds like you were both looking at different solutions that are available in the market. Is there anything that comes to mind that actually made CloudKeeper stand out above the rest? And Pratish, we can stick with you on this one.
I think the in-depth rules what you guys have, right? The rule book, I'm not sure that gives a lot of breadth and depth into the AWS services, right? The other vendors we explored was very basic, right? Just might make some suggestions regarding your EC2 instances or EK. I mean, yeah, just the basic, right? So here you're covering more than 100 odd services, right? And then, I mean, the relation with CloudKeeper has been such that now, if I find something on my account, right, I see, okay, why am I spending $10,000 on this XYZ service every month? What's the use of it, right? So, CloudKeeper will dig into it, find out the details. A recent example, one of the services like CloudTrail services, what it does is it records all your actions, whatever you do on an AWS account, right? So, AWS gives you the first record for that free. Now, for a security tool, we had to record that action twice. And now when you start recording that action twice, everything what's happening on your infrastructure, you're recording it twice, and now that's where the spend, that $10,000 monthly spend came from, right? So the rule book is so robust that it could catch those rules. And if you just go back with the feedback to CloudKeeper, why don't you add to your rule book? They are as flexible always to add these new rules to your system. That would help other customers also, but then yeah, makes us also at a state where if we do the same mistake again, we get caught up right on time, not a few months or years when we actually start looking into it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that the extensive nature of all of the services that we can interact with is being put to good use with you and your team. And how about you, Sunny?
Yeah. So I think whatever vendors we were evaluating before CloudKeeper, I think yes, they were offering certain similar features, right? When we talk about that, yes, they had recommendations page in them. They were managing the RIs for us, etc., etc. But then there are certain things in AWS where you have to continuously update your system, right? For example, a certain version can cost me $1,000 every month if I'm not upgrading to the latest version, right? There's something called as extended program wherein AWS charges us if we are still on the older version. CloudKeeper has that feature wherein I get the recommendations for such thing as well. If I am running my EKS cluster on an older version, I know that after a certain point of time I'll be start paying for that. So those recommendations are readily available today. Even though I have missed some notification from AWS, I know that if I go to CloudKeeper, I know that yes, this I have to do this to save my cost. And such features, they were like an inclination for us that okay, just go to CloudKeeper. You have everything you need in terms of AWS, right? And we can just take action. We can see what has to be changed, when it has to be changed, etc.
Excellent. Very happy to hear that our ability to diversify the way we approach all these different AWS services actually stands out with the dynamics of both of your environments. You both have very different AWS environments. It sounds like they're both relatively robust, relatively complex. And we love to see that all of these features that we've put out over the years are being put to good use in both of your use cases, despite the similarities and differences. Now, I want to close this out with one other question that came in. If a company is just starting their cloud optimization journey, what advice would each of you give them about when to consider a tool like CloudKeeper Tuner? And I want us to take this question in the context of, some folks grow really big in terms of their AWS usage before they think about optimization, and some folks might be in their initial stages of their AWS journey in and of itself and might not be spending a ton now. But in regardless of those circumstances, Pratish, what advice would you give people?
The first thing would be, don't consider this to be a one-day project like I mentioned earlier. I mean, have it as an ongoing process. And so that's when you need a automated tool where CloudKeeper is on top of it, having it maintained for you, right? A one-time project, you would set alerts, you would not be on top of it always. So always have it as set up as like, yeah, this is what is not a one-time project. We just need to be on top of it always, right? That's what I think. The other thing is, like, if you're already into the system and now you see, okay, your cost is big. Now, rather than taking big decisions like buying reserved instances or maybe re-architecturing your workload and all that, take a look at what the low-hanging fruits are, right? What are the idle resources? Like the other thing, extended supports and all that stuff, right? You could actually save thousands of maybe of dollars on that. If you're a big company, you could save maybe millions of dollars on that also, right? But then that's when you don't even get to look into it till the time you don't have a tool for it, right? So that's what I mean. Have a proper tool which can do things for you rather than just hiring a cloud specialist and doing everything in-house. That doesn't work like that, because it's what my personal experience has been.
Excellent. And Sunny, what would your advice be to folks getting started on their optimization journey?
Yep. I think this optimization journey is pretty long, right? As Pratish said, it's not a one-day job. It has to be taken day by day, and every day you learn something new, what you have not done right, or what you can do to save more cost, right? So yes, of course, everybody tries to do it by themselves. Some succeed, but I would say if we have to do a cost optimization effort, when you also seeing at what kind of, so every time when you see an opportunity, it might not be the right action to take, because you might need certain changes in your architecture overall to save certain costs, right? You might be using certain type of instances based on your workload, and you might think that yes, AWS is showing me as work provision, I can go ahead and just reduce my instance down. But you also need to understand the fundamental behind it. When you have recommendations personalized based on your infrastructure, I think that's the best way to start your cost optimization journey. And CloudKeeper is giving me that solution that anybody can come in, they can link their account there, you can have an architectural overview, and then you get the recommendation what suits you, right? Rather than doing a general recommendation, taking action on a general recommendation for anybody. So again, it's just like one shoe doesn't fit all. So that's the same theory, I believe.
Excellent. Great perspective, and thank you both for sharing that advice. I'm optimistic there are folks out there that'll be able to put that to good use in their own AWS environments. I'm going to turn us back now to just do a quick recap of some of the takeaways I picked up throughout this conversation. So number one, it sounds like we're able to put both of your organizations in a much more proactive situation when it comes to reacting to cloud cost changes or even your AWS environment changes. We've got very easy implementation to get started with CloudKeeper. You're spending a lot less time and having a lot more consistency in your actual optimization journey. We mentioned better performance. We don't talk about that enough, but being able to optimize in such a way that you're spending less and getting more is what the cloud is all about. So I'd love to see that happening. We've got excellent support coupled with what seems to be a high impact software. Love to see customers using both arms of CloudKeeper. We do very much think about ourselves as a software and services company in that respect. The The flexibility of the platform will always continue to be a core differentiator from us, as well as the immediate response to feature requests. Those are two things that go hand in hand. And we very much encourage our customers to tell us what they want, tell us what they need, and then have our team act on those in short order. So, above all, it sounds like we've had a high impact with you both. Very happy to hear that. Again, just to recap about CloudKeeper, what is our perspective on ourselves? I think you just heard it from the customers. We see ourselves as an end-to-end cloud optimization partner. We do that through a variety of ways. As Sunny said, there's one shoe doesn't fit everyone, and there's a million ways that you can use AWS. As such, there's a million ways that you can optimize, and we're here to put all of those pieces together, be it through our software, be it through our support, to help customers do what they need to do and optimize their environment. I mentioned before, for anybody who is interested in signing up for the Cloud Fitness Challenge, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. I'm sure we're going to be sending a link to the Cloud Fitness Challenge. If you're curious, can I optimize my environment? This is really no strings attached. We will send you your Cloud Fitness scorecard so you can see exactly how much you can be saving, what we can do to affect that change. And we'll send you a free copy of our fitness plan for AWS. So that's your comprehensive guide to all things optimization. And with that, Sunny, Pratish, thank you so much, most of all, for sharing your time with us, for sharing your experience. Big savings ahead. I hope so for both of you and for everybody out there. Thank you very much and appreciate your time for today.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye, everybody.